This video will cover Octavian's actions in the western part of the Roman Empire between the battles of Philippi and Actium, and the following video will cover Antony's actions at the same time. You should be making notes to answer the following questions. 1. What were the reasons for the siege of Perusia? 2. What was agreed in the Treaty of BRUNDISIUM? 3. Who was Sextus Pompey and why was he a problem? And 4. What were the consequences of Octavian's victory at Naulocus? Firstly, some background around the problems which Octavian is trying to deal with at this time. So in the western part of the Roman Empire, the land that had been set aside for the veterans was nowhere near enough. They had originally planned to resettle about 18 cities, but they needed to confiscate land from up to 22 more. So this was very unfair on the people who already owned that land. It was inconsistent and it led to a lot of unrest in Italy. While all that was happening, Sextus Pompey, son of Pompey, Caesar's former enemy, had built up a fleet and he was blocking Rome's grain supply, which had to come in from overseas. And so the riots, because of these food shortages, escalated into civil war. Antony's brother Lucius, who had also been the consul in 42 BC, took advantage of this situation and began leading a revolt against Octavian, and he was also supported by Antony's wife Fulvia. They claimed that Octavian was getting the credit for resettling the veterans, and their plan was that Antony would return from the east and join them, but they didn't actually ask him to do this. So, no surprises, the revolt was unsuccessful. Lucius was besieged by Perusia, besieged in Perusia, Antony's troops never came to support him and he ended up being starved into surrender. So Octavian, after defeating them, treated Lucius and Fulvia with generosity, but the leaders of Perusia were killed and their city was looted and burned. After this siege, which had taken place in the north of Italy, some of Octavian's troops occupied Gaul. This had belonged to Antony, but he took over it, and this meant that he now controlled the western half of the Roman Empire. In 40 BC, Antony tried to return to Italy, but he was prevented from docking at Brundisium, which you can see there on Italy's eastern coast. And so civil war seemed inevitable. In 40 BC, the triumvirate was renewed with an agreement known as the Treaty of Brundisium. So the triumvirs came to an agreement and they basically decided that the entire conflict was the fault of Lucius Antonius and Fulvia. Octavian was just acting in self-defense. They redistributed the provinces once more. So Antony had the entire eastern part of the empire. Octavian had the west. Lepidus wasn't actually there, but he was assigned Africa in his absence, so the southern part of the Roman Empire. And they sealed the agreement by the marriage of Antony to Octavian's sister Octavia, even though by this time Cleopatra, his Egyptian mistress, was also pregnant with his child. And Octavian was charged with putting a stop to Sextus Pompeius. He had to either defeat him or make peace in order to get back Rome's grain supply. So after an initial unsuccessful campaign against Sextus Pompeius, Marcus Agrippa was recalled. He, as you'll remember from the Battle of Philippi, was a very able commander. The triumvirate was also renewed once more in 38 BC, and Antony sent Octavian 120 warships. And the plan was that Octavian would send him 20,000 troops to help with his invasion of the east. He never actually sent them. Sextus was defeated in the Battle of Naulocus in 36 BC. Again, this is largely due to Agrippa's leadership. He fled east and Antony's orders had him executed, and through propaganda we really just remember him as a pirate. So as a result of this victory, Octavian's actually able to claim a lot of success. He is able to say that he has ended the civil wars. Sextus Pompey was the very last of the Republicans, so he has defeated them, he's rid the sea of pirates, he's ensured Rome's grain supply. Lepidus tried to claim Sicily for himself. He's feeling a bit left out, but all his soldiers defected to Octavian. So he was stripped of his powers, but he was allowed to continue as Pontifex Maximus, or chief priest of Rome. So because of this position, he was sacrosanct, he couldn't be hurt or harmed, and so it would be sacrilegious and immoral for Octavian to get rid of him. So Octavian now has a very superior military position. He's got 45 legions, over 500 warships. So he campaigns in Illyria, northern Greece, and he would have continued north to conquer the Danube lands, but as we'll see, problems arose with Antony.